Hello, ladies and gentlemen. There's another topic that people have been asking me upon occasion that's kind of interesting to do, is the effect of masturbation, orgasm, or sexual activity on athletic performance or lifting, which I thought was kind of interesting because there's studies going back all the way to 1967 where those, bless their deviant little hearts, they actually did some studies on the effects of sex on these things to see what would really happen, because this has been a myth that's gone on for years that hasn't been proven one way or another. Okay, well, let's just discuss the physical. There's maybe 3 studies out there that I've seen that actually address physiological changes from sexual activity involving its effect on some kind of physical activity. So what they did do was they took a bunch of married males, about 14 different married males actually, and they had them abstain from sex and they tested their grip strength. And then they had them have sex and they tested their grip strength. And what they found was there was no difference in grip strength among all the different men, which just shows there's no difference in like muscle performance quickly after some kind of sex. Now, none of the other studies also had any kind of real effect on a physical activity itself. But the one thing they never really discussed is the mental aspect of it. Never underestimate the power of superstition. If you believe something is true, that can be even more powerful than something actually being true. So we've all heard stories before of boxers maybe not having sex for 8 months before some kind of competition or something like that. And we've heard of people that embrace nofap, which is almost a religion now, which I don't understand really, but you have people proselytizing the idea that you should not engage in any sexual activity in order to enhance your own life. Okay, well, that's fine too. And then on the other hand, on top of that, you have people that believe that even something as simple as masturbation or some kind of sex before the gym will decrease activity or decrease the amount of intensity you can actually generate. Again, the physical part of that doesn't seem to be true, except that I have seen a couple articles that suggested that you might want to wait a couple hours after you do something like that in order for that energy to come back. And that would actually make sense. You actually don't burn off that much energy during sexual activity, despite what people think. No matter how vigorous you are, it tends to be somewhere between 50 to 250 calories. I know all you think you're on the far end of the spectrum, but you probably aren't, which is fine. And no doubt masturbation is probably quite a bit less than that, but hey, whatever floats your boat. But one of the biggest things with that too mentally is just whether you feel like after you've been sexually satiated, which is an odd topic, I know, that you feel like you're performing as well. And with that, I would also put the emotional tangent to that as far as, dare I say, affection and love and stuff like that, and how that pertains to beginning a new partner and how that can affect your training intensity. But going back to like the idea of sexual satiation, there was a famous 5,000 meter sprinter whose name escapes me at the moment, who used to say, sex makes you happy. Happy people don't run under 4-minute miles. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. Maybe happy people that are contented, that have great sexual partners and a great sex life, don't try so hard in their different sports. You know, it's really, really hard to say with stuff like that. There was another manager of a baseball team that said it wasn't the sex, it was the behaviors and the pursuit of sex that caused a lot of problems when it came to players. So, for example, if you're out drinking or at a club to pick up a man or a woman or whatever your preferences are, and that means that you got no sleep or whatever before an activity, you may not function quite as well as you would if you got a good night's sleep and you had nothing else to do. That about covers that. Oh, but the emotional element's kind of interesting too. I was talking to somebody just randomly here, as somebody who's been in the supplement world for a long time. I would say that outside of time commitments and just loss of interest, the greatest reason or the biggest reason that people will stop training is they get a new significant other. Male or female, doesn't make a difference. When they get a new boyfriend or girlfriend, that infatuation will oftentimes lead to them stop training. And what's really funny is I won't see them around for a long time, and they'll pop back after 6 months or a year, and I'll see them and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm just coming back to the gym for the first time. I need to buy this and this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, you just break up with somebody? And it almost invariably it's like, yes, that was the reason why. And they got a little bit fatter, they got a little bit weaker, they got a little bit whatever, and all of a sudden they're coming back in, and it's either they broke up with somebody or it's the ending of their relationship, which motivates them to suddenly become more attractive to members of the opposite sex, which actually from an evolutionary point of view makes a lot of sense. We've also seen this a lot of times in various fictional movies or literature, right? I saw a date movie not too long ago called Wimbledon. It was out a few years ago, where the male protagonist in the movie was like 117th in the world in tennis, was going to his last Wimbledon, and he falls for this girl, and he becomes infatuated, and all of a sudden he plays really well. And what's interesting is the girl, who was like number 1 or number 2 ranked, started playing poorly because she got infatuated. So the effects of love or affection can be very different. I know that sounds like it's odd because I'm using a fictional example, but these things tend to have real-world applications. Or a movie like The Natural, where Robert Redford has this amazing baseball swing, but when he meets a girl and he gets involved with her, all of a sudden he can't hit the ball anymore. So please put in the comments, though, if you know of any movies or books that show this kind of activity. But anyway, I just want to disabuse the notion that basically sexual activity or orgasm will somehow diminish your ability to do some kind of sport or to train in the gym. But to point out that if you have a superstition about it, that could be some of the things that do affect you. And also that there is a mental aspect of this stuff that you have to be self-aware of. Anyway, that's all I have for you.